Hi guys, bienvenidos a mi canal. Today we're going to continue working on look number 4 for my senior collection called Xenomorph AM. Today's goal is to trace the patterns that I completed onto the muslin fabric, then cut it, and then sew it. And do that whole complete mock-up so I know that everything fits well before I actually put it on the leather and plastic and the official fabrics and materials I'm gonna use. And if you'd like to see the first part, click right here and you can see that. And then you can come right back to this one, okay? So let's get right to it. So whenever I mention muslin, muslin is this type of fabric. It's a plain weaved cotton fabric, and it could be unbleached or bleached, and it's just very lightweight. And designers use muslin to do mock-ups because it's on the cheaper side of fabrics and it's easy to work with because it is just a plain weave fabric. So yeah, so typically what I do before I trace my patterns onto any fabric, I make sure to iron it. This fabric is extremely wide, so I fold it in half and just make sure to really iron and get those creases out because it does interfere with your patterns and the end result. And I'm putting it on the setting between linen and cotton. And when I get to the edge of the fold, I make sure to really iron that fold and get it flat because you don't want that to interfere with the measurements of your patterns. Now that we have ironed this muslin, we can nicely place it on our table and we can place our pattern pieces on top. But I want to show you guys something. Whenever you're placing your pattern pieces, you fold the fabric in half, which we did, and we made sure that this is a nice folded crease. And then you can just let it hang over there, right? The side towards you of the table, this is where you have the two pieces open, right? That's of the fold. And you make sure that you have those two edges aligned. These two ends are called selvages. Whenever they weave the yarns together, they have to interlace them differently on the edges, kind of finishes the whole fabric and they stay intact. And to trace the patterns onto the fabric, you can use pencil, marker, fabric marker, chalk, whatever you like. You can use, for this instance, I'm gonna use pencil. And you're gonna need pins. And unfortunately, I only have one fabric weight. These are good to make sure that the pattern pieces don't move or the fabric doesn't move. So since I just have one, I usually use heavyweight items that I have around my house. For example, this. So that's what I do. So I already set aside the pieces that I don't have to cut on a fold. And then these 3 pieces I do have to cut on a fold because they're one complete thing. Like you have to flip it around, but just to make it easier, sometimes you can just put it on a fold if it's convenient with the fabric amount that you have. So these, I'm gonna put them aside for right now. And then all of these, which there's a bunch, I have a lot of little pattern pieces. And in your pattern pieces, you should have like a grain line, and which is very important whenever you are cutting fabric with your pattern pieces. I use this ruler because I like how it's transparent and it has so many measurements lined. Now what you have to do is align the ruler to the selvage end and follow the grain line of it. And what I mean by that is make sure that this line, your grain line, is aligned with one of the lines here on the ruler. Oh, and another reason why we have the fabric on a fold is because typically a lot of these items, I have to cut 2 of them, and to save time, you just fold it in 2 and you already have one like this, and then the other one is like the opposite of it. Oh, and then another thing I do is I put pins on random places of the fabric so it doesn't shift so much. I put them randomly so it just holds the fabric together and the fabric doesn't shift. And when you're tracing the pattern, make sure just to do really precise straight lines. You can place them all together and then trace them, but because I do have a really tiny table that I'm using right now, I'm just gonna do it by little sections. Oh, and you can use an awl whenever you have like dots on your pattern piece. Like on this piece, I have a couple dots that I have to put a hole in because I'm placing something on it. Or sometimes, you know, for darts, you know, the point of a dart, you might also need to mark that. So I do this, and then with the pencil, what I do is I mark it like that, mark it here. I'm going to move this fabric towards here, so because there's a lot of fabric left over there that I can use instead of going downwards. So what I did is pin the patterns to the places that I already traced it together, and now I'm gonna shift this downward. So for these 3 pieces, I need to put them on a fold, and I mark them on the pattern piece center front or center back fold. So then I align the fold edge to the pattern piece, and then the rest of this empty space, I still have a couple pattern pieces to make, so I'm gonna use that as well. Now that we have all the pieces traced, we're going to cut them. I use these fabric scissors from Fiskars. Make sure to always cut in the lines and to cut all the notches that you have. And when you cut your notches, make sure to just cut that little mark. Don't go over it, because when you get to sew it, and if the cut is a lot longer than your seam allowance, it will go through the seam. So make sure to just do a little cut like this. You want to always pin the piece to the fabric piece that you just cut, so you don't lose track of them. So now I'm gonna cut the pieces that are in the fold. All you cut is around this area except the fold, because we want that in one piece. Alright, so I just finished cutting all the pattern pieces that you see right here. And now we have to sew it all together. I know this is not the most ideal way to sew, but we're gonna work with what we got. So the first thing I'm gonna sew is the top. And if you guys wanna learn how to sew, I got you, girl. I made a video and you can click right here to watch it, and you can sew with me. Always make sure what side is the right side and the wrong side, so you match those pieces together. And right now what I'm doing is connecting the notches of different pieces. So this is one piece, right? What we folded on the edge. On a fold, and then this is a piece that goes on the top. It goes like this, right? And then I match up the right sides together, and then you grab a little pin where the notch is right here. You just pin it like this, and you want to pin it like this way, because when you sew, the line goes here, the sewing needle goes here, so then you can easily remove that here. If you put the pin this way, then it's gonna be a hard time to like pull it off. Okay, so I sewed these couple pieces together, and this is the bustier. I'm going to press the seams open. This part is the bust, and what we need to do around the edges of the bust is make little cuts, little sections. Make sure to not cut over the seam line, and you do this so there's less stress on the seam. And to steam the bust, there's like these kind of pillows that are rounded pillows, and that's where you put this around it, and then you steam the seams flat. But because I don't have that, what I do is use the edge that we have here, and at the end you should get something like this where it kind of pops up. When you don't press the seams, this is how it looks, and then this is after you press the seams. It's more of a curved. I finished pressing these seams, and look how clean they look. The seams are pressed nicely, and I can continue adding the other stuff that I need to add onto this bustier. Alright guys, so I have to finish up this mock-up. I'll probably show you guys on Instagram the final look before I post it on YouTube. So go ahead and follow me on Instagram, which is right here. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something new from this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.